Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Ewart. Thank you for having me back. Today I'm reading my Christmas book, Santa's Christmas Wish. Illustrations by Brittany Ewart. Christmas was coming up, and some of the elves were hard at work in the toy factory. Other elves were putting finishing touches on the Christmas tree in the middle of Kringle Square. Mrs. Claus was baking pies for the North Pole Christmas party. The reindeer were getting their hooves treated so they wouldn't make a sound when they landed on the rooftops. But Santa was nowhere to be found. Mrs. Claus wanted Santa to be the first to taste her candy cane pie. She searched for him in his library because she knew he loved to sit in his oversized chair and read letters from all the children in the world, but she didn't find him there. She thought he might be in the toy factory, since he enjoyed watching all the toys being made with care, but she didn't find him there. She put on her furry red winter coat and searched every row of Christmas Tree Village. She knew Santa liked to look at all the trees decorated with twinkle lights, colored garlands, and shiny bulbs, but she didn't find him there. The snowflakes flittering down from the sky reminded Mrs. Claus of another place Santa liked to go. She headed through Kringle Village and over to Snowflake City. Snowflake City was the best place for magic. In the heart of the city was a giant snowflake. It caught all the small snowflakes and captured the magic inside of them. It made all the magic of the North Pole possible, and it was the most beautiful sight to see. It was the place where Santa was born. It was the reason for all the magic inside of him. Sometimes, Santa liked to sit by the giant snowflake and watch it change colors as the magic entered. When she got to Snowflake City, Mrs. Claus headed straight toward the giant snowflake and searched for Santa, but she didn't find him there. She started to shiver from the cold and remembered one other place Santa liked to visit when he was in Snowflake City. She braved the cold and headed straight to Carol's Christmas Cocoa Shop. She opened the large rounded door, and there she found Santa. He was sitting in a chair with a mug of the world's best cocoa in his hand and a sorrowful look on his face. Mrs. Claus sat beside him in the chair with candy cane legs, ordered herself a mug of cocoa, and asked Santa why he was sad. Santa sat quietly, sipping his cocoa. He was magic and could make the most amazing things happen, but sometimes he felt sad. Mrs. Claus had noticed he wasn't quite himself lately. She remembered Santa having the same look on his face when the elves performed at the choir concert. He'd had the same look on his face during the snowman building contest, and he had the same look on his face during the reindeer races. Yes, Santa had not been himself lately, and Mrs. Claus wanted to know what was wrong. As they sat sipping their cocoa, Santa told Mrs. Claus something she had never heard before. He and all the others at Kringle Village and Snowflake City had devoted their lives to making Christmas special for all the children in the world. North Pole Mail Service Center sent letter after letter after letter to Santa with the wishes of so many children. Santa read the letters and entered them into the naughty or nice computer. If the child had been nice, their Christmas wish was sent to the toy factory. If the child had been naughty, their Christmas wish was sent to the Coal Your Jets department. The nice children got toys that were sent to the Winterland wrapping department when they were finished. Then, the reindeer hauled all the toys to the ELF department, Elves with Lifting Fury, and the toys were loaded into the sleigh. Santa would take over from there, flying all night long Christmas Eve to deliver those toys. He braved cold and rain, hail and sleet, wind and ice. He did it all for children who never ever, not even once, sent a thank you note. He told Mrs. Claus if he had just one Christmas wish, it would be for a thank you. Just one thank you from one child, one time. Mrs. Claus understood why Santa was upset. She thought about all the things she did for the elves. She made their clothing, cooked their meals, threw their birthday parties, and helped teach their children in Kringle Square's Elf Elementary School. If they had never told her thank you, she would be sad too, just like Santa. She wasn't sure what to do to cheer Santa up, but Mrs. Claus knew she had to do something. When they finished their mugs of cocoa, they headed back to Kringle Village, and she told Santa he needed to rest up for Christmas Eve. He agreed, so Mrs. Claus gave him a piece of her candy cane pie and sent him to bed while she headed back to Snowflake City. She would need some help with the kind of thank you note Santa needed. She gave detailed instructions to the elves and felt confident they knew exactly how things should be set up while she was gone. Then, Mrs. Claus asked the sugar plum fairies and mistletoe moose to go with her. The moose let her and the fairies ride on his back. They entered the heart of Snowflake City quietly, so they wouldn't awaken the nutcrackers that guarded the giant snowflake. Mrs. Claus was a little nervous, but she sent the sugar plum fairies into the center of the snowflake with a special mission. They needed to retrieve some very special memories and come out of the snowflake without waking the guards. The temperature started to drop. The wind was blowing hard, and buckets of snow dumped down from the sky as the fairies emerged from the center of the snowflake. Mrs. Claus, the sugar plum fairies, and mistletoe moose were freezing cold, but raced back to Kringle Village as quickly and quietly as they could. The elves had everything set up when Mrs. Claus arrived. They handed her a cup of Holly's hot apple cider and took the sugar plum fairies into the wreath reviewing room. The wreath reviewing room was the place where children's actions could be reviewed to see if they were naughty or nice when the computers weren't working. It hadn't been used in 100 years, but Mrs. Claus was counting on its magic. The fairies entered all the memories they had collected from the giant snowflake, and by morning, something amazing had been created. Santa came downstairs in search of Mrs. Claus and her famous sleigh bell sausage breakfast. Giggling elves greeted him and took him by the hand to the wreath reviewing room. They handed him his breakfast and told Santa that Mrs. Claus had a little something for him to watch while he ate. The large wreath in the center of the room lit up with a memory collage. The memory collage was made up of hundreds of short videos from children all around the world moments after they opened their Christmas presents. The room was filled with happy shouts of, "Oh my gosh, it's exactly what I wanted. Thank you, Santa." Over and over again, the children thanked Santa from all over the globe. In the middle of their living rooms, while still in their pajamas, the children thanked Santa. He just wasn't there to see it, but the sugar plum fairies had captured those moments. All Santa had to do was see it. Tears ran down Santa's rosy little cheeks while he watched. Mrs. Claus came into the room and sat next to him. He kissed her cheek and told her this was the best Christmas present she could have ever given him. Sometimes, everyone just needs a thank you, even Santa. The end.